Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins.
We are the Shrink Think Podcast.
Baby.
Enjoy the show.
Dude, are we rolling?
Rolling.
Okay, dude, I gotta
You're rolling.
I found this TikTok of this Scooby-Doo dude singing Ain't Nothing But a J Thing. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but I just want to get the vibe.
1, 2, 3, into the flow. Take me for a walk and I'ma use the doggy dope. Ready to leave a dookie, so bag it up. Now my owner about to pick that up. Every bone in the dirt, I use my paws like a shovel. Feeling an itch upon my cheek, I'll be scratching my muscle. Nothing but a big thing, baby.
Fully
in the country gravy. Staying loyal to the ones who raised me. I'm 7, but in dog years I'm 8. Got a dog park making new friends. If y'all are canines, then I'm a K10.
That's so ridiculous.
I'm a K10.
I was kind of expecting him to go into like a Scooby-Doo voice, but it's not at all. But it's like as a dog. Okay.
Right. If you're a K9, then I'm a K10. I was like, that was actually pretty creative. Yeah, anyways.
Ain't nothing but a recording thing.
Maybe.
Maybe.
We gotta double check, like what? Oh, yeah, because we gotta chickadee check ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
Check. One.
Ooh, that was really greasy.
Check. One.
What the heck is that? It's like a pterodactyl. That's what it is.
It is.
It's a pterodactyl.
It's from Australia at the New Zealand where they've recently sighted one in the last 4
I mean, it
days.
is far away. They probably have all kinds of crazy things that the rest of the world's never heard about because communication can't travel across the
No, it can't.
the water like
No,
that.
it doesn't. That's
It's
why
crazy.
all that you hear across the water is every once in a while. What was that?
What's happening over
I
there?
don't know, but sound travels far across the water.
Yeah, I guess so.
This makes no sense at all.
What are we talking about? Group therapy?
Group therapy.
Okay. And I wrote down a couple of ideas. Do you need me to text those to you?
Yeah, let's keep it secret from the
Yes. Don't tell
YouTube
anybody.
people. Oh, look at that! No,
I mean, it's kind of simple. There are just a few things that we did that I wrote down that covered a lot of ground. But I'm about to text it. Too bad you don't have an iPhone. You guys all heard that. Nathan does not have an iPhone.
no, I have not joined the cult.
Oh my gosh.
Good
he's
God!
As though Google's not its own cult.
This is not Google.
Android.
No, it's
Samsung.
another- Yeah, Samsung different.
Same cult.
No, they're not
The
a
cult of
very diverse.
Android.
Not a monopoly of Apple's cult.
No, yeah, right. Okay.
The Apple. The Accult. Oh, the Accult
The
instead
Accult.
of the Apple.
Okay, I think I got it. Shall we?
Okay. Yes. Now I...
Get caught up while I'm introing. Good?
Yeah, do it.
Alright. You'll be distracted for a while, so we'll be good. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast. It's good to see you if you're on YouTube. If you're not, I am a blank nothing to you, so that's kind of weird. But if you are listening on Spotify, Apple, those are kind of like the two main platforms that people listen to. I'm sure there are others that other people listen to, and if you are listening on one of those, maybe you should consider switching. But we are coming to you right now from the Shrink Think layer with fresh new content for you. If you have not joined our YouTube channel, switch over. I was just talking with a lady a couple days ago, and she was like, you guys need to keep doing YouTube because it is so funny. It's so hilarious to see you guys. It's so different just to watch your dynamics, like your faces and the things you like do with each other. And if you've listened for any length of time, you know that we'll be like, I don't know, doing something with our hands or making faces or whatever that it just doesn't come through. It doesn't translate on the podcast. Even though we love all of our podcast listeners, if you get a chance to check out our YouTube channel, go check it out. We are, I don't even know how to get it's in the link of every episode.
Well, yeah, and then you just, you can get on YouTube and just search
it up.
Shrink Think, and then you can be part of the other 20 viewers.
That's right. We're looking to double our viewership in the
What's
next
going to
month.
go down? I can't
to
believe
40.
we got 35 viewers. Pick it up, man.
Exactly. Oh man, my teenager has more viewers on his YouTube channel than I do.
Yeah.
That's legit. Anyway, let's actually talk about some relevant stuff here. We're going to be talking about group counseling today because it's something that happens. It's out there. A lot of people do group counseling, whether there are therapists out there that run groups or if you're just a person in the audience, a normie, as we called them last time, somebody who goes to counseling or just listens to a podcast. It's actually a thing. A lot of people go to if they're going to a treatment program or they're actually just going to join a group. There's all kinds of process groups that talk about various issues in lots of different formats. I used to work in drugs and alcohol. There are groups for recovery from various addictions. That's kind of a normal thing. AA has been around forever. It's been around a long time. So it's it doesn't have to be that intense, that serious, but it can be where with a major issue like that, it can just be people wanting to get together and improve their relationships or improve their health, improve their anxiety or whatever. So all that said, we're going to talk about the ins and outs in group counseling today, what the differences are in the different modalities, why you might go to it, and how you can benefit from it.
Yeah. First of all, it used to be back in the day, when I say back in the day, prior to when I was started, which I feel like was when dinosaurs were still roaming the earth.
That's true. I was going to give you the 1800s, but you go further back.
That was that pterodactyl.
Yeah.
That's why I know the sound. Anyway, if you're watching YouTube, you'll get that. But that's right, inside jokes are happening. Okay, so a while ago, back in the 80s especially, when the group counseling started coming on, what they would do is they would you basically joined a group for a couple reasons. One, because your psychiatrist told you to, and two, because it actually probably was a little cheaper in the sense that they would run. It wouldn't be uncommon to be doing several sessions a day if you were, because remember, in older times, the folks back then, counseling was not a thing. I mean, if you were going to counseling, you had problems, and you probably kept that a secret.
Major psychiatric disorders, is what they might have called it, that you'd be ashamed of, that were not socially acceptable. And, times have changed where people now are talking about, oh, do you have OCD too? Nope, I have ADHD. Oh, I have that. It's it's very different now.
Now you get a merit badge.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I just earned the ADHD.
We should do that. We should get merit badge. Anyways, I'm just kidding. No, it wasn't, it necessarily wasn't as, we have this thing in counseling called severe and persistent mental illness. Everybody just calls it SPMI. It wasn't necessarily as extreme as that all the time, but when people kind of got into that whole thing to try to understand themselves, groups became really popular, and they are really effective because, and I'm going to tell you a couple stories because I want you to kind of understand what I mean by why they're effective. But before I do that, let's just kind of work through this. So these groups, they kind of, whoever shows up. They didn't pay as much attention to separating issues out. You could have really a lot of OCD or something, and then somebody else could have what we now know as some kind of PTSD, and then you have these different things. But the groups were still effective, even though you had all these different issues, because you have all these humans together, and when you've got somebody that's not struggling with what you're struggling with, and they're sitting across from you and you're explaining it. There's two sides to that. On the one hand, you could say, well, they don't really understand me because they don't have what I have. But there is an element that these folks are making up stories about how the world perceives them. So
and not intentionally making up, but they're believing stories about how the world perceives them.
Right, we all do it. Yeah, we all do it. We think, you're really nitpicky about yourself, right? You look in the mirror and you're like, oh, I gotta lose this, I gotta whatever, my hair's wrong. It's the same idea. And then when somebody else who's in the group it says something back to you that's like, you've never done that. I would have never thought that about you.
They're representing the normal society out there, the average, typical, everybody else who you encounter. And if they're not noticing that, if they're what are you talking about? That's totally fine. It's not a big deal. Then it helps you, if you're the person with the issue to normalize to the group.
Right. So you get this blended nature of humanity that kind of like the rising tide lifts all boats type of a thing. Well, slowly over time, we start learning about groups. We start separating issues out a bit more. Insurance companies get challenged to pay for groups. And then groups take a turn to be extremely issue specific. So we're going to put all the people with anger in one group, all the people with trauma in one group, and that type of thing. The issue with that is when you have, sorry, Aaron's in my business. when you have everybody in the same group, the next thing that went down was that they started shrinking them and started putting time frames on them, because insurance companies are like, we're not going to pay for this to just keep going, man. So all of a sudden now we come to our day and age, and it's like a lot of the groups that people want to join, actually the part of the big ones is probably anger management. And that's very limited from a point A to point B, meaning has a clear start date, has a clear end, and then you're out. You literally get a certificate.
X number of sessions, you're covering literally this set material. It's like you're okay, today we're on chapter 3, out of 7 chapters, and next week we'll cover chapter 4, kind of a deal.
Right, and there's nothing, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm kind of passionate about process groups, because in the moment, if you're kind of scheduled through it, people can kind of if they can kind of game the system, I just need to show up for 6 or 12 times, do this, check the box because my so-and-so legal situation means that that I have no choice to. But here's the thing, and I want to honor this whole piece. I mean, Aaron and I both worked in groups that are very specific.
I've done both. I've done the anger management. We've done the DV, domestic violence groups that are kind of like process, but they have very issue specific. And then we've also facilitated process groups. So we have quite a bit of experience doing both.
Yeah, I would say that one of the big, and this is to kind of get into a little more of the meat of example of kind of what I wanted to share, and then I'll turn it over to where you want to go, Aaron.
I want to make sure that we explain issues versus process groups versus topic or issue groups, so that people understand the difference. Because you mentioned it, I want to make sure that our listeners know what that is.
Okay. So to be clear, a process group is a group that has it has a start time, because meaning a start date, because you have to start somewhere.
Right. We're going to meet on June 1st.
But maybe your group generally is just trying to be stronger, moving forward in their life,
Or how about people that want to improve their communication?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, it's a process group for people who don't feel like they communicate well, and you want to improve your communication. It's a great example, because a lot of people in the group will be able to help you with that.
Right, and so then there is some psychoeducation that goes down about communication, that kind of thing. But it's more open from a process standpoint, because we're going to go ahead and I was going to say avail ourselves, but not to be fancy in that way, but just to be open to the fact that this can go many different ways. We don't have a set amount of material that we're going to go over.
Direction that we're going in.
Yeah.
We're kind of letting the group create and decide the direction.
Yeah. So the counselor is much more of a facilitator and does some education to kind of get things rolling about okay, you guys are all in here for communication. Let's talk about what that means, something like that. Some stuff that they can say. Because, when people first get in a group, everybody's kind of sitting there waiting for somebody else to say something. That's just the way people are. And go ahead.
And I was just going to say, the interesting thing about this process group is that, as the group is deciding what to talk about, somebody might come in and just start out and say, well, I've been told that I'm too direct and I need to be more sensitive or whatever. And then, so the group might take on that direction and say okay, we're going to help, so-and-so with this issue. Well, at the same time, there's likely somebody else in the group who maybe is more passive as a communicator. They don't know how to be as direct. Maybe they are intimidated by other people, or they don't want to be as assertive. They need to be more assertive. And so you get this dynamic where another person in the group, while that one person is focusing on being less direct, another person in the group is learning how to be more direct, and so you're changing those dynamics and shifting them around to sort of meet various elements or needs of the group of the different members at any given time. So when one person is getting their need met, another person might be getting a need met from the opposite side of that coin.
And they are learning from each other. So when you have people set up like that, like a people together like that is more what I mean. There's a bunch of feedback that the group just takes a life of its own. And the counselors that do a lot of process groups, they'll talk about how, like, I'm not doing regular counseling. These are powerful. This is way more, quite frankly, they'll say it's more efficient and it's a bigger bang for the buck type of thing.
Instead of one person, you, the counselor, giving feedback on somebody, you're getting, and it's almost like just like, it's almost like a formality. You're like, let's do your performance review. Well, I've noted these things. I mean, it's true. You're live. You're in a relationship. You give feedback, but it's a little bit more, I don't know, dry or formal. I don't know how to describe it. Whereas when you're in the group, it's alive. Like you're literally talking about stuff, interacting with people. They have reactions, and then the facilitator steps in and says, "Hold on. Why did you react that way?" There's like these live kind of demonstrations. They're not really demonstrations. It's just actually happening. It's just happening. It's really, really interesting.
I mean, you can imagine that in your example, Aaron, the person who is trying to tame their bluntness with the other person in the room who's trying to be more assertive, that the blunt person be like, just say it. Just say it. And
I can take it. Like, I want to know what you're saying. It's kind of annoying that you're not just saying it.
Everybody says that. Just kidding. And the assertive person can kind of watch and learn, and then also watch the balance, right? Because there is too much on either side. The blunt person has been told they're too blunt, and the assertive person, or the lack of assertiveness, is probably worried that they're going to go too far. So you can literally talk to the person who has gone too far.
Yes. And these are just two people, and then let's say there are like 10 other people in the group. You can ask the group can then ask these other people, and what did you think? I'm not used to being this assertive, but I just said something. It feels like I was really direct. You can ask the group what they think, and they hear it, and they're like, no, that wasn't direct at all. In fact, I could probably use more directness. So you're getting a ton of direct feedback from a variety of people. That's extremely valuable. Mm-hmm. That's a process group.
Yeah, and typically groups, as far as in number, groups will stop at about 10 on average, I'd say. Like a group, in order to be
10 o'clock in the morning? We got a strong cutoff time.
It'd be closer to 10 o'clock at night, probably. But because groups often tend to be in the evening for some reason.
10
people.
10 people, okay.
So like as far as having 10 people in a process group, so to get the administrative angle, you might have a start date of June 1st, but there is actually no really clear end date. There are these times when the group, and here's the thing, because of that life of your own thing, people might be like, oh, I think I've got what I need out of this group. I'm thinking about leaving. So the group can kind of decide like, hey, we should, some of them are going to want to keep it going. So what ends up happening is you design these exit points which are also simultaneously entry points where you can pull in new people. So people might be hearing about the group, oh, you should go do this. Well, you can't really start. I mean, the next entry point is going to be like August 1st, so you're going to have to wait till then because that's when some people are leaving. It's that type of thing. So
just so it has some structure to it and some like sort of security or containment around it.
Right. So that's kind of the whole process group scenario.
And let me just say really quickly before you get into your story also, in the topic or issue specific thing where it's like maybe 6 sessions or 10 weeks or whatever it is, once a week kind of a thing, the group facilitator, the counselor in that tends to be more like psychoeducational, directive, leading. They're the ones that they're kind of like presenting some material and then looking for some feedback or interaction from the group. But it's this more back and forth dynamic where they're leading and then getting some feedback, and then it goes back to the facilitator. In a process group, on the other hand, it's way more organic. It just flows. And oftentimes the group counselor they might begin something and sort of let it go, and then they're sort of acting as guardrails. They're sort of nudging things in this direction or making sure it does not go off the cliff in that direction. So they might be a little bit more passive, but they're very, very active in terms of watching the dynamics. They might jump in and say, hey, I noticed when this happened, Mary over there, you've been quiet this entire time. Like, what do you think about all this? So they're facilitating involvement, participation, reactions, kinds of things. So just in terms of the facilitator, they're going to be different in those different modalities.
Yeah. The other thing too that happens in groups, that this happens both, more so in a process group by far, is that the therapist is a part of the group, and the therapist will at times be vulnerable and just join in because because it takes a life of its own. So as a therapist, you have to really be aware of managing all of the different ethics that are involved in that, and then also just being a part of the process. It's a pretty cool experience. Okay, so issue-based or topical groups. These are groups that, I said earlier they have a clear start time, and that's definitely true, but that doesn't necessarily mean, other than the very first time the group ever meets, and because of existence, that doesn't mean that it's a start and end, as in like, okay, it goes from January to blah, blah, the end. It will be like, take domestic violence groups. Whenever the program starts, like, hey, we're going to start a program, blah, blah. Okay, now we start on January 1. Well, that group is going to have a set amount of education to do for the group members. They will have a curriculum. Literally, it's a curriculum. That's what it is called. And there are things that you'll go through like different things that people learn. Meanwhile, as your group is happening, like weeks are going by, people are coming in one time a week in domestic violence, because we're focused on that in this group example that I'm giving. There's other ones. People are still getting in trouble with the law, and then those people are entering.
New people are entering.
They're
like in February and March and April.
They just are showing up. So now you've got new people. So you've got to like manage the education of the new people coming in, and really the coolness of that group is the group members that have already experienced the prior education are now part of educating the new people that come in.
Which is cool, because if you know anything about learning a new skill, learning new information, it's that it's one thing to read it, study it, learn it for yourself, but then when you have to teach it to somebody else, that's really a test of how well you know it.
So in one scenario, this new person comes in, and what had happened was there was a huge socioeconomic difference between, because the thing with topical groups are typically when you're mandated, you have no choice to go, and so that's generally
there are groups where it's like issue specific, like if people are doing parenting groups or whatever. So
yeah, totally. In my scenario, I've got domestic violence, and none of these people are going to want to be there.
Yeah.
But this actually can apply. My example can apply across all of these groups, but it's one of those ones where it really glaringly was obvious. So everybody kind of knows, right? They're all in there for the same thing, and this guy in the group was a millionaire. So socioeconomically, he's not in the same page. He does not deserve to be there, right? This is not. You shouldn't be there, right?
I tried to write a check to get out of it.
Right, but here I am. And nobody in the group is in the same level as him as far as socioeconomics, but a lot of the people are like pretty impoverished. So this guy, I don't remember exactly what he said, but another guy in the group looked at him and like, this guy was actually the guy was not homeless, but he was definitely impoverished, more so than other people in the group actually. And he looked at him and he goes, "Are you serious? Do you think we believe you, like what you're saying?" And the guy, the millionaire guy, looks back at this dude and realizes this guy is seeing right through him, because they have the same problem. Right?
We're both human beings. Our money and our image might be different, but beneath all of that, we're both humans with skin and bones.
So it was transformative for him, and really the impoverished guy didn't care one way or the other, but meaning like as far as influence goes with that, just to be clear. But that other guy was like, it broke him down to where it was like he got in touch with the fact that he was not better. he was not entitled. Like all of a sudden he came into his humanity. That was a change moment for him. He was a different group member from that point on. So there is this policing that happens in groups with some of these issues of like that are topical.
Yeah, just really quickly, and then we'll end here. I have another similar kind of a story. I remember a guy, we would do like these check-ins in these groups, and you know, how was your week? What happened? How are things going? And usually there's usually quite a bit of drama that's happening. But every week, one guy for like weeks and weeks and weeks, he'd be like, I don't know, work's great, family's great, marriage is great, my kids are great. And then, so at one point, after like 4 or 5 of these, somebody else just like, I call BS. Like, how is it that you're here, but everything is always great? And that like began this conflict of a conversation where this guy had to like be real. Like, all right, tell us, let's see. And as he was unpacking it, it's like, no, everything was not great. He just didn't want to say the real thing. And the other group members were calling him on it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah. So this is why groups can be really powerful. They can get at stuff that you can't get at in like counseling. They also have a tendency to be a little more inexpensive, whereas counseling on average might be $200 a session or less.
Depending on
where you're at, all kinds of things it depends on. Group counseling, honestly, can be anywhere from about $25 to maybe $100 per session, and it's very beneficial. So, totally encourage you to look around your area, check out, see if there's something in there something out there that you might want to do work in that way, maybe instead of the other way. Or you can blend them. You can do both. You can do counseling and you can do groups, and you can also
go to our swag shop. I'm keeping that in there. Go to our swag shop. I knew you were going to say have a great day. I love the laugh at the end too. That was awesome. That's gonna be like one of those highlight moments, I think.
Yeah, we have a highlight reel of strengthening video.
We have one video on that reel now. One clip.
That's like
exactly
10 seconds, maybe.
Not going to work for our 200.
No.
Need a few more than that.
We need moss for the 200. I don't know if we have
Taco Bell, is that what you're saying? We need moss?
Yes. Must have moss.